The football world has just witnessed a story so unbelievable that it sounds like it was written by a Hollywood screenwriter. A 19-year-old footballer has just conquered the world. But the most unbelievable part of the story is not simply that Lamine Yamal is now a World Cup winner, it is who is standing on the opposite side of the pitch, Lionel Messi, the greatest player of his generation, the man whose name has dominated world football for almost 2 decades, and the player who, almost 19 years ago, appeared in a bizarrely perfect photograph with a baby Lamine Yamal. In 2007, Messi was a 20-year-old Barcelona star. Yamal was just a baby. The two were brought together during a charity photo shoot connected to a fundraising calendar involving Barcelona and UNICEF-related charitable work. At the time, it was simply a photograph. Nobody knew that the baby in Messi's arms would one day become one of the biggest stars in world football. Nobody knew that the two would eventually play for Barcelona, and nobody could possibly have predicted that they would one day stand opposite each other in a FIFA World Cup final. But that is exactly what happened. On July 19, 2026, the story finally reached its most unbelievable chapter. Lionel Messi and Lamine Yamal stood on opposite sides of the biggest stage in football. The old era, the new era, the legend, the teenager who had already started creating a legacy of his own. And after 120 minutes of drama, Spain defeated Argentina 1-0 in extra time. Ferran Torres scored the decisive goal in the 106th minute, and Spain became world champions for the second time. And Lamine Yamal, he became a World Cup winner at 19 years old. That is where the story becomes truly extraordinary, because most footballers spend their entire careers chasing one major international trophy. Some never win one, others wait until their late 20s or 30s. Lamine Yamal has now won the European Championship and the World Cup before turning 20. And this is not simply a player who happened to be part of successful teams. Yamal has become one of the central figures of the new generation. But to understand how incredible this journey really is, we have to go back to the beginning. Lamine Yamal was born in July 2007 in Esplugues de Llobregat near Barcelona. His father is Moroccan and his mother is from Equatorial Guinea. And from a very young age, football became the center of his life. Yamal joined Barcelona's famous La Masia academy as a child. He was only 7 years old. That means he entered the same footballing environment that had previously developed players such as Lionel Messi, Xavi, Andres Iniesta, Sergio Busquets, and countless other Barcelona legends. But even inside an academy famous for producing extraordinary talent, Yamal quickly began attracting attention. He was technically gifted. He was comfortable with the ball. He had incredible balance. And most importantly, he seemed to possess something that cannot easily be taught: the ability to make something happen. A defender could be standing in front of him. The entire stadium could know that Yamal wanted to cut inside, and somehow he could still create the space. That ability eventually took him all the way to Barcelona's first team. In April 2023, at just 15 years, 9 months, and 16 days old, Lamine Yamal made his senior debut for Barcelona. He became the youngest player ever to appear for the club's first team. But the most impressive part was not simply his age, it was the way he played. He did not look like a teenager who had been given a few minutes as a symbolic appearance. He looked like a footballer who believed he belonged there. He was fearless, he demanded the ball, he attacked defenders, and he played with the kind of confidence that usually takes years to develop. Then came the international stage. Spain selected Yamal for Euro 2024. He was only 16 years old, and suddenly the entire world was watching. He became the youngest player ever to appear in the European Championship, and during the tournament, he continued to show that his age was almost irrelevant. The biggest moment came in the semi-final against France. Yamal received the ball outside the penalty area, he cut inside, and then he produced a stunning curling finish that flew into the top corner. 16 years old, playing in a European Championship semi-final, scoring one of the most spectacular goals of the tournament. And just days later, Spain won the European Championship. Lamine Yamal was 16 years old. He had just become a European champion. At that moment, the football world began asking a completely different question. Not, can Lamine Yamal become a star? But, are we watching the beginning of something historic? Because the numbers were already extraordinary. He was breaking records simply by appearing on the pitch. He was creating goals, he was scoring, he was deciding major matches. And he was doing it while playing against experienced international defenders who had spent years competing at the highest level. But perhaps the most frightening thing about Yamal was his style. He did not play like a typical young winger. He did not simply run quickly down the wing and cross the ball. Yamal could control the rhythm of an attack. He could slow down, wait for the defender to move, suddenly accelerate, cut inside, create a passing angle, or attempt something completely unexpected. And this is why the comparisons with Lionel Messi became almost unavoidable. Both players are left-footed, both are comfortable starting from the right side, both love cutting inside, both possess extraordinary close control, and both can make defenders look completely helpless in one-on-one situations. But here is the important point. Lamine Yamal is not Lionel Messi, and he should not have to become Lionel Messi. Messi is Messi. His career is unique. His achievements are almost impossible to repeat. Yamal needs to create his own story, and that is exactly what he has started doing. At Barcelona, Yamal has now become one of the club's most important players. He has already won major domestic trophies. He has played in some of the biggest matches in Europe. And during the 2025-26 La Liga season, he was named the league's Player of the Season. Barcelona defended their league title, finishing with 94 points. Yamal was one of the main reasons. He finished the league campaign with 16 goals and 12 assists. That is an extraordinary output for any player. For a 19-year-old, it is even more remarkable. But statistics only tell part of the story. Because when Yamal plays, the opposition changes the way it defends. Two players may move toward him. A midfielder may drop deeper. A fullback may refuse to attack because of the danger of losing possession. And that creates space for everyone else. This is one of the clearest signs that a player has become genuinely influential. You do not need to score every goal to control a match. Sometimes simply receiving the ball can change the entire structure of the opposition, and Yamal has already reached that level. But then came the 2026 World Cup, the biggest stage, the greatest pressure, and a completely different challenge. This time, Yamal was no longer simply the exciting teenager everyone wanted to watch. He was one of Spain's biggest stars. The expectations were enormous. Every opponent knew who he was. Every defender knew that giving him space could be dangerous, and every mistake would be analyzed around the world. But instead of disappearing under the pressure, Yamal became even more important. Spain entered the tournament with an exciting young generation. The team had talent across the pitch, but Yamal became one of the faces of the entire campaign. And then came the final. Spain against Argentina, Lamine Yamal against Lionel Messi. The photograph from 2007 suddenly became one of the most surreal stories in sports history. A young Messi had once been photographed with baby Yamal. Nearly 2 decades later, they were facing each other in a World Cup final. This was no friendly match. This was not a training session. This was the biggest game in football. Messi was trying to add one more legendary chapter to his career. Yamal was trying to begin a new chapter of his own, and for long periods the match was incredibly tense. The final remained goalless through normal time. Argentina were fighting to defend their world title. Spain were trying to complete their own rise to the top. The pressure continued to increase. Every mistake could decide history, and eventually, in extra time, Spain found the breakthrough. In the 106th minute, Ferran Torres scored the winning goal. Spain were world champions, and Yamal had done it. The boy from the famous photograph was now a World Cup winner. The teenager who once appeared in a charity photo shoot with Messi had now stood opposite him on football's biggest stage. And when the final ended, the moment between the two players became even more powerful. Yamal embraced Messi. The image immediately became one of the defining moments of the tournament. It was more than just two footballers shaking hands. It represented the passing of time. One career was reaching its final chapters, another was only beginning, And now the football world is asking the biggest question of all: can Lamine Yamal become the best player in the world? At this point, nobody can honestly guarantee the answer. Football is unpredictable, careers can change because of injuries, form can disappear, competition is always increasing, and being a great young player is not the same as becoming an all-time great. But what we can say is this: Yamal has already achieved things that most players never achieve. He has won the European Championship. He has won the World Cup. He has become a key player for Barcelona. He has been named La Liga Player of the Season. And he has done all of this before turning 20. That is not normal. It is almost impossible. And the most frightening thing for the rest of football is that he may still be improving. His physical development will continue. His decision-making will continue to improve. His understanding of the game will continue to develop. And if he can remain healthy, focused, and motivated, the next decade could become something truly extraordinary. But there is also a danger. The football world loves creating the next superstar. The moment a young player becomes famous, the comparisons begin, the headlines begin, the pressure begins. Every goal is compared to Messi, every performance is analyzed, every bad game becomes a crisis. And that is why Yamal's next challenge may not be technical, it may be psychological. Can he continue improving while the entire world expects him to become a footballing superhero? Can he remain patient? Can he handle the pressure of becoming one of the most famous young athletes on the planet? Can he continue developing his own style instead of trying to become someone else? Those questions will define the next stage of his career, because the world has already seen the talent. Now we need to see the consistency. Messi did not become Messi because of one tournament. He became Messi because he remained extraordinary for years. Cristiano Ronaldo did not become Ronaldo because of one season. He continued to evolve. The greatest players are not simply talented. They survive the pressure, they adapt, they improve, and they remain hungry after winning everything. That is the challenge waiting for Lamine Yamal. Because after winning the European Championship and the World Cup, the question becomes, what can possibly motivate him next? The answer may be simple. He wants more league titles, more Champions League trophies, more international success, more individual awards, and perhaps one day the Ballon d'Or. But even that may not be enough. Because the most exciting part of Yamal's story is that we still do not know where the limit is. At 19 years old, he has already reached the top of international football, but his club career is still developing. His prime years are still far away. And the version of Lamine Yamal we are watching today may not even be the best version of him. Imagine that. The player who has already won the European Championship and the World Cup may still have his best football ahead of him. That is why the Messi connection feels so powerful. In 2007, Messi was the young talent. He was the exciting Barcelona player with the world at his feet. Yamal was a baby. Nobody knew what the future would bring. Now, almost 2 decades later, Yamal is the young superstar, and Messi is the legendary figure who has already lived one of the greatest careers in football history. The story has come full circle, but perhaps this is not the end of the story. Perhaps it is the beginning. Because the photograph of Messi and baby Yamal was already unbelievable, the World Cup final made it even more unbelievable, but the next chapter could be even bigger. What happens if Yamal wins the Champions League? What happens if he wins the Ballon d'Or? What happens if he becomes the face of Barcelona for the next decade? What happens if years from now another young footballer takes a photograph with Lamine Yamal, and that young player eventually becomes the next superstar? That is how football works. One generation inspires another. The story never truly ends. And right now, Lamine Yamal appears to be standing at the beginning of something extraordinary. He is already a European champion. He is already a world champion. He has already played against Lionel Messi in a World Cup final, and he is still only 19 years old. So now the question is no longer whether Lamine Yamal can become a superstar. He already is one. The real question is much bigger. Can he become the defining footballer of the next generation? Can he follow the path created by Messi, Ronaldo, and the greatest players of the modern era? Can he eventually become the best player in the world? Nobody knows. But after everything we have already seen, it would be foolish to place a limit on him, because the boy from that unbelievable photograph has already grown into a European champion. He has now become a world champion, and the next chapter of his story has only just begun. So what do you think? Can Lamine Yamal become the best player in the world? Can he win multiple Ballon d'Or trophies? And after winning the European Championship and the World Cup before turning 20, how many major trophies do you think he can win before his career is over? Let me know your prediction in the comments. Subscribe for the latest verified football news, stories, transfers, and major updates from the world of football. And remember this name, Lamine Yamal, because the future of football may already be here.